Welcome back to Off Market. Today I'm joined by someone who I genuinely see as a modern day CEO in real estate. Someone who has had a huge impact on so many people across the industry through leadership, mentorship, and roles she has held over the years. She's had an incredible career working in senior leadership roles within some of the largest franchise networks in the country, and most recently stepping into the role of CEO at Urban Real Estate. I'm looking forward to unpacking her journey, her leadership style, and what the future on the industry looks like and from her perspective. Katrina Tarrant, welcome to Off Market.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. I'm a little bit nervous. I want to do a good job for you. You're a very important person in my life. So thank you. I feel
Please,
really humbled to be here.
I'm nervous as hell. I haven't had quality of sleep just thinking in terms of what questions to ask this amazing person in front of me. But look, take us back to the beginning. I mentioned to you off recording, I know you, but I don't know who Katrina Tarrant is. What was it like growing up?
Yeah, and I guess a bit of a trigger warning for some people. So I often say, I'm a CEO, but I'm also a teenage mum who grew up in an abusive household on the wrong side of the tracks, I guess. And I never finished high school. So I was a smart girl, a top 10% of the state, but I never got to finish my HSC. I left home at 17 with a garbage bag of my belongings, and that was it. And I was out in the big bad world. I moved into a townhouse at Macquarie Fields. My next door neighbour was a bikie and a drug dealer, and I was still safer than I was living at home with my mum and her boyfriends. So I was a little girl who was let down by a lot of adults and figured out pretty early on that if it was meant to be, it was only up to me. I've never taken that as a woe me or a poor me. It was kind of like get on with it and get out in the world. So I'm pretty tough. And like the long blonde hair for you. I'm pretty tough and I'm pretty resilient. And I think that's kind of shaped and humbled. That's kind of shaped my leadership style.
And do you have siblings? Did you grow up with
I
siblings?
do. My brother and sister are 10 and 8 years older than me. We all left home by the time we were 17. When my brother left at 17, he's a priest to go on the seminary. I was still quite young. And I think he always feels a little bit guilty that he left me there. But of course, we all had to do what we had to do to get out of there. So, yeah, so I really grew up on my own, so to speak, as an only child because my siblings were so much older than me. Had a wonderful neighbor, Rhonda. She wasn't married or didn't have children. And I guess back in the 80s, she would have been considered a spinster. I don't know. And she would really look after me, take me for long bike rides. I'd be left at home a lot on my own. And she really stepped in and was kind of a wonderful big sister or de facto parent for me.
And that would have been challenging being a teenager going through that. How did you transition into work life whilst still dealing with this?
Yeah. So when I was living in that townhouse at Macquarie Fields, I was paying $170 a week rent. And I was earning $208 a week working for Barry Mendel Frank and Company in the city. I was an office junior in the filing room. So I worked in the compactors for an accounting firm, and my job was just to be in that internal room and file pretty much all day. So I lived off $38 a week. I was fortunate that my job was to order the sandwiches and things like that for the meeting. So hopefully there was always something left over. I also tell this story how I'd go to Franklin's and I'd buy a 45-cent cake mix, a vanilla cake mix, and I would make that cake and eat that for a week. So, when I moved in, I had nothing. So nothing, no furniture, nothing. Build all that up from scratch. So yeah, I mean it's tough, but it's also character building, and that's kind of my segue into real estate because I was surviving. So I'd moved out and I was surviving. And then I'm like, well, what does thriving look like? And then I remember that man who rented me that house. Like I lied, I was 17. I said I was 18. He would have known I wasn't. Back then it was like paper ID and things like that. So you could kind of with the typewriter, put your age up a little bit. His name is Jim Coburn. In fact, he only sold his real estate agency about 18 months ago to Harcourt's, the property people at Campbelltown. So full circle moment for me. He gave me an opportunity and he put a roof over my head. And kept thinking about that. I was filing Barry Mendel Frank and Company. And I thought, hey, I want to be that. I want to be a real estate agent. I want to give someone an opportunity. So yeah, I started studying my real estate license at night. Back then it was 3 years, 2 nights a week. So I would stay on the train after work. I'd catch a train to Campbelltown TAFE to 9 o'clock at night. And I started studying my real estate license. And then from there, my teacher said, look, we've got this young girl in the class. She's really a real go-getter. LJ Hooker in Camden had a job going as a receptionist. So he put me forward for that. John O'Grady said I was sassy. I didn't know what that word meant. I was like, and there's no Google to look things up. I'm like, am I getting the job? And I owned that office 4 years later.
Wow. Wow. And what was the early years like being a licensed real estate agent?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I married in very young. So as I said, I had my children young. I married into a real estate family. I fell in love with my first husband. He was in that same TAFE class as me, as was Garth Mikowski. And Alex's parents owned 5 real estate offices and 25% share of a real estate franchise group. So I learned franchising really young, typing all the board minutes and being part of it. Having a father-in-law who was a director and he was quite a player in the industry gave me opportunity and exposure to things that you probably wouldn't have. I stuck it out and I got my real estate license. 60 of us started that class, 3 of us finished, and my first husband didn't. So I became the licensee in charge of the business and he didn't.
Oh,
So yeah.
and what was the market like back then?
Yeah, the market. So it's like early 90s, patchy, interesting, lots of stock available. You're basically buyer's agents. We worked in EAC multi-list. So all of your listings, much like the MLS in America these days, would go into one pool and any agent could sell your listings and you'd go on group caravan for hours and hours. And, in the Ponderosa Estate in Camden, there could be 30 most identical houses for sale. So you worked buyers. You put a buyer in your car and you would have them in your car all Saturday. And you would plan out the rhythm and the flow of the properties that you wanted to show them, the ones that they would never buy, the ones that they can't afford, the one they might fall in love with, and ultimately the one that they should buy, and map that out. So you really had to work your buyers back then.
So when you had the listing, and you had other agents basically ushering buyers potentially through that property, was it like a split with the commissions? How did it work?
So if you wanted to send someone broke really quickly, you could just be really focused on buyers outreach and sell and other agents' listings, like just sell, sell, sell. They couldn't stop you from selling their listings if it was multi-list. So early on as a young agent, if I didn't have a lot of listings, I just sold. I was always good at building relationships and doing buyer outreach. The listing agent always got slightly higher split. I mean, ultimately, as a listing agent, you want to keep 100%, not give maybe 40% away. So yeah, I cut my teeth doing that. I think it's a really good experience.
You were basically a fully licensed agent selling and listing. Did you work as an associate first or you just went straight to selling?
Well, of course, I started as a reception
Yeah.
at LJ Hooker. And I always tell this story. One of my tasks at the end of each day was to empty the ashtrays off the desks because people would smoke in the office back then. It was crazy. So, no, I did reception, property officer, property manager, office manager, all of those roles, and then went straight into sales. But there was no real junior or sales associate role. It's like, here's your desk, here's a phone book, here's the multi-list, quick ref, go for it kind of thing. I got a leg up because I was John Swindell's daughter-in-law. So I never, ever take that for granted. That gave me a lot of credibility, overflow listings and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't think I really started from scratch like a lot of people had to.
For me, when I started in real estate, it was in 2007, went and worked for an independent in the Gold Coast. And for training, all I got was Matt Steinway and Lee Woodward CDs and said, off you go, here you go. That's how you learn real estate.
Yeah.
It was in a market where days on market were plus 120 days. And I like what you were saying around, it was more around the buyer. It was the same thing with me. It was more or less having a buyer and having that relationship, that rapport with them and walking them through property to property. And there were conjunctional sales happening on the Gold Coast at that time as well. But it was a unique opportunity to learn differently. I think not having that support from a principal made you a bit tougher. It was really tough. Did you have any training with real estate outside of your office? Did you have a mentor or?
No, not really. Again, mostly my father-in-law. We would go to the REI conferences all the way back then, but no, not a lot of discipline training. It was sort of very much the way in which the office ran. Like, it was pretty strict. Like, you'd have your sales meeting and you have to put your contact cards in. They were literally written on a card. And it was like you had to know who, when, why, and how about a contact. And if you didn't answer that, they'd grab your contact card and just reallocate your contact to someone else. Like, it was pretty brutal and it's just very old school. And especially being a young woman, and I was a young woman with little children as well, and pregnancy and all of that kind of stuff, having to go through all that, a bit of a discrimination, being pregnant and all of that kind of thing. It wasn't probably as acceptable for women to work. Like, I worked right up with Lachlan, who's about to turn 30. I worked up until the Thursday before Easter, and he was born on Easter Monday. So, and then I was back at work 3 weeks later. I mean, they brought the wages book into hospital so I could do the wages. So, it was like pretty full on, but I was so young and we were just caught up in it. My first husband, he was a top performing agent. We were just like the real estate couple, and his parents. And I loved it. I really, I'm a real estate. I did love it. the energy, the enthusiasm. I think I was swept up in it all. And all of our friends were real estate agents or conveyancers or their mates and things like that. So it was just our orbit that we were in, and I loved every minute of it. I also figured out pretty early on that being a real estate agent was easier than being at home with a baby. So huge kudos to my mother-in-law who basically, did a lot of that heavy lifting
I
when
was
the
going to ask,
kids were
how did you
little.
navigate all that?
Yeah, like I'm a mother of two, and this is probably shameful to say. I've never toilet trained a child. My mother-in-law did both. I
So that
have that
mine did
skill
the
set.
same thing. My mother-in-law she did the same thing. Both of our kids, one went through preschool and the other didn't through COVID, and both were nappy trained off the nappy. She did everything for us.
Family takes a village, and I've always been lucky to have a really beautiful village around me. And, I say Alex is my first husband, so obviously we didn't last, but family's family, and his parents played a big role in my life for my whole life. And again, John's passed away now. And my first mother-in-law, I'm really lucky to have had two very wonderful mother-in-laws that have been beautiful to me.
What was the next transition from this family environment? Where did you go next?
Yeah, so that was a little bit trying. So that's my first husband and my Prince Charming. He came in, he swept me off from my townhouse at Macquarie Fields. And, I went from having this very tough life to a very privileged life. And I'm very grateful for that. He was having an affair with my best friend, the conveyancer. So I found myself still young, like early mid 20s with two little children in this big, beautiful house, and my life just crumbled down around me. My brother, the priest, he just walked away from his life and thought my sister needs me, and he came and lived with me for 18 months. He moved. He was living in Cremorne at the time, at the parish of Cremorne, and he became a layperson. I think he took a job in insurance, and he said, "I'll stay with you for as long as you need me." So we had that wonderful sibling bond as adults, and just to get me back on my feet, I walked away from our family business, but my first in-laws were very generous with our home. So the children and I got to stay in our family home. And yeah, very humbling. I took a job as a property manager at LJ Hooker Picton. So I went from being a business owner and, in this big kind of fancy lifestyle to, going back to kind of grassroots. I still had to earn some money. I still had two children to support. And yeah, I had to sort of start again.
What was the adjustment like from being sales into property management?
Yeah, it can be tough. Like it's very different mindset and the way in which you approach things. For me, I couldn't work weekends anymore because of the children. And even though I did have help, I wanted to see my children as much as I could. I was working in sales, you're just working really long hours. Like I had a nanny, and it was getting to a point where I would get home. The nanny had got the kids home from school, fed them dinner, did bath, did home. Like the kids were in bed, and then night after night I wasn't seeing them. And that I didn't have children not to see them. My family was really important to me. So property management gave me that flexibility. I took a role where I finished early in the afternoon, like at 3, so I could pick my kids up from school every day. It would, women, or for me, there's been times I've had to lean in and lean out of my career, and that was a lean out moment, but not without an advantage, because part of that, when I was at LJ Hooker in Picton, I met this wonderful lady called Julie Hoffmanbeck, and she worked in this beautiful space called community housing, which I wasn't familiar with. And we struck up a really beautiful friendship. And off the back of that, I ended up doing a 5-year stint in community housing on management committees and boards and doing tenants advocacy, and just a beautiful pathway that I wouldn't have thought I would have gone down. And I also had the opportunity to co-author an affordable housing study for Parramatta Council, which again, I I don't think I would have had that opportunity. So things happen for a reason, and it kind of sparked my lifelong interest. Like I love this industry, but all the different facets of this industry. And still to this day, I really love that legislation piece. And, we all want the same thing. We've got competing priorities in this industry at the moment, especially with lots of different things on the table. But I truly believe we all want a really good outcome. And I like working with all parts of the industry to achieve that.
Was it male dominant back then?
Yeah.
Yeah, like how did you navigate through that?
Yeah. I think I was a little bit fortunate. I mean, being young and blonde, people still say to me, well, look like a CEO. I find that really interesting. Again, I got credibility from being John Swindel's daughter-in-law. So I think my gradient was easier than many of my colleagues around me. And I need to own that and acknowledge that. But yeah, it was incredibly tough. And some of the situations that I was put in and exposed to, I wouldn't wish that upon anyone.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine. Has things changed now? Are you seeing more women in real estate with bigger roles? more responsibilities, widely accepted now.
Absolutely. I even think when I first got my first CEO role in the industry, which was about 5 or 6 years ago, women CEO of franchise groups was quite limited. And now you can rattle them off. Like there's a huge amount. So I even think in the last, I believe to be true in the last 5 years, that has changed a lot. And there is a huge focus on that. So, which is really important. There are bigger career opportunities in the industry now because back then it was really corner shops, that bricks and mortar high street model, you owned one agency. Now we've got the rise of these mega businesses, huge independents and the likes. You can be a genuine, general manager or CEO of a group of offices. So much more career opportunity and property management. I mean, there's businesses with rent rolls, 5,000, 6,000, 8,000. You're running a huge, big business. Lots of opportunity in that space too.
And when did you find the pivot of wanting to no longer be in the sales or working within one office to looking at potentially like the corporate CEO role? What shifted in you to sort of have that mindset to go, you know what, I want something different?
Yeah, so I'd had a bit of a transition. So I had done the community housing piece, and then my second husband had quite a large landscaping and development company for a long time. When I first met him, he was a subcontractor, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I used to main contract." Like, he was like 3 or 4 down the line. So in terms of profitability, it was quite diminished. So the business person in me kicked in, and it's like you could do this and that, and in the end, that business went from a little like paving company, I guess, to a really big organization. And it was around, when you go to do quotes, you're selling. So everyone swaps out of what they've worn to work, the high vis, and they put their branded polo on. It was the iPad, and we go through, we're selling, and it was pipeline, it was qualifying people, it was conversion rates. And so for someone to get a quote, we used to put a lot of work into our quotes and give them a beautiful landscape plan. They had to complete a landscape wish list before that. So we'd book them in. So it was a qualification piece. So conversion rates got up to about 85, 90%. Extras were always done at a premium. So just went from this business to a ute and a trailer to a little truck to a bigger truck to bobcat, like huge, huge, huge big business contracting with Edenbray Homes, Byron Homes, Domain Homes. The thing with that was because that's just what I know how to do. So I think I real estated the crap out of that business. I actually never stopped to ask him if that's what he wanted. I just assume everyone wants scale. And he hated that business. He hated every bit about it. And me, he hated me, I think, essentially, because that's never what he wanted. He didn't want that kind of big conglomerate. It culminated in something that was almost very tragic for our family. I had no idea that his mental health was at a point where he attempted to take his own life. Had he have succeeded, our son, who was 17 at the time, would have found him in our factory. So you can't even imagine. So we're lucky that someone. So that was a huge shift. So that meant in that time, so during that period of my career, I was sort of running that business. I had to then undo all of that. Nothing is more humbling than having to undo a business. And Charles Harvey actually helped me. I went to him. I'd known Charles since I was 18. I said, we own all this equipment. We've got contracts here and everywhere. We've got factory units full of products. And he's like, you need to do a clearing. So, this is how you get out of these contracts. You could sell the contract. He was just really good to me. And I also got a job. I got a job in corporate, which is a part-time role for Century 21 head office, which was week on, week off, being the national franchise coordinator. Because he said, you'll need a job. What are you going to do? You got to pull this business apart. So yeah, it was like going right back to scratch. And I was resentful. That business presented us with a level of lifestyle, and it felt like overnight it was kind of all gone in a way. Um, but wonderful opportunity. You can't put a human price on business. If a business is that big that it's absolutely destroying a human, then it's not worth it. And that was the greatest lesson I could ever learn for corporate role,
Mm,
because I could then have that conversation most
mm,
genuinely with other business owners.
yeah. And look, I didn't know you've been through so much personally. Looking outside in, you look like this bubbly, smiling, happy, always go getter sort of person. To now hear this, I'm like, wow, like, how do you manage all those emotions, knowing what you've been through to today? How does someone navigate through all that?
Yeah, I think it's acknowledging them. At that time when I was undoing the business, the most important thing was that Mick was fine and he was getting what he needed, and it wasn't myself at that point. I had a very practical lens on what my role was to do at that time, and also to look after our children, even though they were adults. It impacts the whole family, and then just have a plan moving forward. But if I look back, I didn't deal with it. And then, like many things, childhood trauma and things, we sweep them under this massive rug that is, a mountain that you walk past, which at some point in your life will catch up with you. And that caught up with me when my dad sort of died in tragic circumstances and unexpectedly. And it stopped me in my tracks. And your body has a way of going, hey, guess what? Now we're going to deal with all that trauma you've ignored. And you have no choice at that point but to wade through it. And I was very open with my team. I had to turn to therapy. I needed help to get through that. I was a CEO at the time. That happened many years later. So I built this corporate career. I just gotten on with it, but that always bubbled under the surface until it didn't. And, I was sitting in, these open plan offices. They're great, aren't they? But you have no privacy. I'd be sitting in the basement car park of my office having therapy sessions to do the work. But I just committed to doing the work and really go. And then in the middle is
Hey,
Hey, look, Katrina. What's going on, guys? Look at me. I've been
David,
pulled off. I've been
it's
pulled
a
off the golf course.
little bit price for you, Kat. I've asked David to jump on board and have a chat with us. Earlier on, I said that, there's been a lot of people may have had an impact on your life
yes.
through real estate, but I think I'm one to say that there's others in the industry that you've had a huge impact. David, what sort of impact has Kat had on yours?
She's one of my best friends, so I love her dearly. But we met about 10 years ago. She was my Rain and Horn days. She was area rep for us, so she looked after our area, and she actually got me on a bad day. I'd given up smoking, and I actually was very cranky. I gave her no eye contact. I gave her nothing, actually. I actually said to her, how long is this meeting going to take? Anyway, she said she was then determined to become involved in my business, which she did. She's been has helped me out through the years, the Rain and Horn years of increasing our large property management department. She's also helped. Oh, there's more people here. Hello. And then she's helped.
It's the great dad.
She's helped out through with my property management. She's also helped me out a lot with buying out my partners and giving me great advice. And then also just recently helping me restructure my property management. But also her knowledge on legislation. I'd ring her up and say, Kat, I'm thinking about doing that. And she's go, no, David, that's illegal. So obviously I didn't do it. But no, she's been great for me. We've had a lot of good times together with this new job at Urban. I know she'll be appreciated there and she'll get that place really pumping.
Oh, Hilly, I love you. And can I say, I went through a really tough time last year and you got me off the couch. You were like, that's it. Get your pajamas
I
off,
did.
get your hair out of a bun. And you taught me how to love real estate again. I really thought about leaving the industry and you dragged me into your office. So I was happy to come and said, look, come in. It's a safe place. I'd love you to do some work. And your team is so beautiful and you're so beautiful. And you instilled confidence back in me that I knew what I was doing and I could add value. And I love you to bits. You are one of my dearest friends. And thank you so much for all the
Don't make
care
me
and
cry.
love that you've shown me. And we have a lot of fun together too.
They
Yes,
just keep pouring in. Kat, look, I've got Chloe as well. We've got
How are you,
Kat,
mate, Kat?
I'm a bit nervous about what stories they're going to tell.
Paul. We just had David join in and basically tell how Kat's had an impact with him. What sort of impact has Kat had with you?
I've actually said this story to quite a few people, and the biggest impact for me was around COVID time. Rain and Horn was going through some changes, and we actually didn't have a regional manager at that time, and I was stuck with some really important things. And Kat just put her hand up and said, "Hey, I've got you. What do you need?" And really helped me and my team through COVID times. And she was just a blessing. And not only through that, she's been a fantastic friend. We've been there for each other through thick and thin. And I love it a bit. And and I'm just glad that even though she has left Rain and Horn, we're still good friends. But yeah, during COVID times, I think she really stepped up and really helped me out.
But Chloe, for yourself, so you're not a real estate agent, you're an actual supplier to the industry with Detector Inspector. What impact has Kat had with you?
So Kat and I first met back in my Lang & Simmons head office days, and we've sort of kept in touch since then. So it's been sort of 4 or 5 years down the track now. And for me, I would say my biggest impact would be just a shoulder to confide in, someone who's been around the industry for a long time. And much like myself, a young female in the industry isn't always easy. She's done it with such grace, and I think someone that a lot of people look up to, including myself. So yeah, I think impact is hard to define for me, but I think just being that person who, you can ask any question, she's very happy and open to help you, regardless of if it gives her anything in return. And I think that that's something that's quite rare for some other people in the industry. So she's really someone that I know that not only myself, but a lot of others around do ask for help and questions, and it might not necessarily be a linear answer all the time, but it is something that I will never take for granted, and hope that, she knows that we've also all collectively got her as much as she's had us. So yeah.
Love you, Chloe. And we do. Chloe is a very beautiful, articulate, credentialed young lady in her own rights. And I love our conversations. We do our ins and outs every year. We come together and we determine what's in and what's out for the year, and we review how we went the previous year. And I really enjoy doing that. Hilly jumped on board with that. It's often over a couple of glasses of wine at the end of the year, celebrating Christmas as well. So it's a lot of fun and friendship along the way. And, they say, like, people chase happiness as this end destination, but it isn't. Life is about, a whole group of memories and moments that you make up along the way. And these guys are a big part of all those little happy moments for me in my life. And I'm pretty emotional that they're all on here today. Yes, Hilly?
In summary, I'm just going to give a summary of the ins and outs. Ins are very positive and outs are very negative. And that's what we all strive for this year, and that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, that's the vibe we create.
Yeah, and for me, Kat, it's opportunities like this, like the crew that we've got here, which I've only just met David and Chloe recently through an intro for yourself. You go out of your way to open up opportunities and doors for people in the industry to help them excel in their path. But what I like as well is that irrespective of your role, you're open to helping others, no matter where they are in their career. And it's that selflessness that I love about you. You go out of your way to help people. The whole new crew that you guys have got at Urban, give again, sort of helping people out with no expectations and receiving anything in return. You're just a superhuman being, in all honesty. We love you. I know there's a lot more people out there who love you. And yeah, we're just very thankful to be a part of you.
Well, I'm very grateful. And as I said, when when you go through a tough time, they say when the tide's out, you say who's swimming naked, I guess. What I realized last year when I went through a really tough time is that I actually had it all, because I had the most amazing people around me that held me through that. And that truly is what success is. So, you can chase all of these shiny things, but at the end of the day, it's the people that choose to be in your life when they don't have to, or turn up when you don't have the title anymore, or when you've got nothing to offer. But they're there. They double down on being there for you, and, and to make sure that they help you find again the best version of yourself. So I'm really grateful, and it's the best kind of having great friends is the best kind of therapy you could ever have. Thanks, guys. I'll see you on Thursday night.
Thursday night.
Thanks,
So
guys.
I
I really
think,
appreciate you jumping on and sharing your story with Kat.
pleasure.
Thanks,
What time
Jen.
are we
Pleasure.
meeting?
Bye.
Bye, Kat.
I'll
Bye.
have the group chat.
Catch you later. Bye.
See you guys. Thank you.
See you, Kat. See you guys. Bye.
See ya. Thank you. Billy, you still there?
It's still the glory. It's frozen.
But something
that
a little
was-
special I wanted to do for you, because as I mentioned, you have touched a lot of people, and whether you know or you don't, I wanted this to be proof of the impact that you've had. For me, like I said to you, we got working together when you were at Harcourts, and the opportunities that you opened up for me, and you still continue to do, I can't thank you enough. But I want to touch more on your career. So you get into a role at Century, was it?
Century 21, so National Franchise Coordinator, week on, week off, excuse me, which sounds really great, but it means you just get 50% of the salary. It's half the wage. So I would work 5 days on, 9 days off with Sandy, and Sandy was lovely, but she was a little bit more aggressive than me. So I would essentially type the franchise agreements or do all the special conditions and things like that. So Sandy would have the easiest weeks. I'd get there on a Monday and all the stuff would come to me because I'd just plow on through it. But Amazing crew. So that gave me my first little taste into working in corporate, and I loved it. Paul Mylott, who was the general manager there for 20 years, he was actually my father-in-law's business partner. Paul came to my first wedding. So I've known Charles for a long time. So those networks came back into play and it felt really familiar and safe. I'd moved into the city by then. I'd catch the bus into work and it felt pretty cool. But obviously I need to work more than 50% of the year. So a position came up, which was area manager. And yeah, I went for it. And they're like, you're a really good national franchise court. I'm like, guys, I need a full-time job. So they promoted me to area manager. And I was at Century 21 for I think about 3 years in total. And then I got an opportunity to go to Rain and Horn, which was a brand I really wanted to go to in New South Wales. Their coverage or amount of offices, like it was the biggest state. So you were kind of really playing with the big boys. It had quite a good saturation of offices and also regional. So a bit of depth of experience for me to have to go out and manage the regional offices, which there's macro and micro climates in terms of the market and different challenges. Average days on market in the city could have been 29, 43. Moree, it was 365. Like it was a year. As Stephen Hickson, my good old mate Hicko, would say, the listing had a birthday. So, you have to coach and train differently and get in your car and drive to places I'd never been. And, corporate's taken me. I've been to Bali on trips. I've been to Vietnam on, top performance trips, Queenstown, lots of different overseas opportunities and just opportunities to lead and be a leader without necessarily having the title of leader, but run training programs. I built an amazing training program with Caroline Boulderstone called Evolve, which I'm still really proud of. When I go back and I look at that, I think, oh, it's really good. So, yeah, all those wonderful opportunities there. And I was at Rain and Horn for nearly 5 years and just a bit burnt out, like I was doing all that regional travel. So I'd do a trip, I'd be away all week. I was away 70% of the year. And then I have an 8-hour drive home from Moree. My family pulled me aside and they said, you give the magic to everyone else. You bring the weather as a leader. So your energy, you've got to walk in. I would give all that to the network. And then I'd get home on a Saturday, crumble in a heap, and go again on a Sunday. And, just became not sustainable. So I took a contract role with First National, which is a marketing co-op. So there's no kind of restraint from franchise to franchise and just a different model to learn. And that was smack bang in COVID. So I start there and then within 3 or 4 months, lockdown. So you're just locked down in your house. New network, all of that kind of stuff. But it was just an opportunity to be on the phone from 6 o'clock in the morning till, whatever at night, caring for people. And that's what I love to do. So I built really strong relationships at that network. And I sort of was hungry. I'd started studying my MBA at that point, and I was hungry for the next challenge. I thought, look, I've got to invest in myself. What does a good leader look like? And I was doing all this work behind the scenes. I'd meet with business partners. They say, Kat, you talk to us like a CEO. Like, when are you going to step up? But I wasn't on anyone's radar to be a CEO. So I built this whole strategy and I do a keynote about it now, which is how I used social media to become a CEO. I decided I had to put myself out there. I had to, show people what I was doing, get on the radar. And that gave me an opportunity to be on a podcast, which was the Wire podcast, which was with Sadhna Smiles, which was Women in Real Estate podcast. And I ended up being voted the #1 episode for the whole year. And from that, I got an opportunity to the Property Services Commissioner of New South Wales role. I went through 7 rounds of interviewing the minister and got down to the final 2. John Minns got the role. Totally deserved it. I would have been completely out of my depth, but to get all that way there. So I got headhunted for that role. And then Harcourts came calling for my first CEO opportunity. So it's amazing how quickly, when I chose to put myself out there and show what I could do, I got noticed.
Yeah. And what was your leadership style? So you've just started at Harcourts as for New South Wales. What's your leadership style that you bring?
I had no idea because, when you become a CEO, there's no book like Welcome to CEO School. And then if you do these 5 things, you'll be really successful. So no. So your leadership style, you model off other people and you learn, and it takes a while. I would say now, like kind of 5 years in, I'm only really honing in on what that is. I'm really clear on what that is, but I wasn't. And it does take a while. So, you do worry about the team around you because you're on training wheels and learning to be a leader. It mucked in straight away and was just kind of an account manager. I just did the roles that I'd done for, such a long time, a decade. It's like, right, service. We service a network. We do this, we do that. The things, franchising comes naturally to me. I've been doing it for such a long time, way back, for my father-in-law with nationwide realty days, but the leadership took longer. So studying that, so my master's degree is in business, but I did do a specialty in innovation and leadership, and really trying to hone that contemporary leadership style, which for me is the extraordinary application of the mundane. And you'll hear me repeat that time and time again. So it's just small as all. If it matters to them, it has to matter to me. And really looking at that and building your EQ, and that takes time, your emotional intelligence. Again, you really have to work on that, how you choose to react to things, and building your capabilities as well. Extreme ownership, really important. F up Friday, had a few of those. Because you have to learn from that. Yep. So yeah, lots of that, acknowledging that and hoping that you have people tap you on the shoulder and tell you where your blind spots are. What I would say as a leader now is the kindest thing I could do to anyone is have conversations with them about their blind spots and help them grow their leadership capabilities. So they're not surprised if something comes up. Yeah.
And when you came into Harcourts, how did you build trust with a lot of the owners of these businesses and the staff within the business?
I got smashed. So Harcourts was a business that had gone to weed, and I don't think, not being disrespectful in saying that, it just was a state, sorry, not Harcourts as a whole, New South Wales. It was a state that hadn't been loved and had come through COVID, and they didn't really have a leader. So I got smashed and bashed up. Every office I walked in, everyone was cranky. Everyone was like, oh. And so you could just listen. And it's like, genuinely listen, and their gripes were valid, really valid. There was no denying that. But I couldn't actually pay for the sins of the past. They weren't of my doing. So all I could do was build strong relationships and ask them if they would trust in me to draw a line in the sand, and whatever promises I made moving forward, I would keep. And I would do that, time and time again. So I was very lucky that they were gracious, beautiful people. And they did give me that opportunity to do that. And we forged relationships really quickly by caring. And I'll give you an example. And Michael Garside's very dear to many people. He's very dear to me. He mentioned that, I think it was Ben, I can't remember now, but and his wife, and Michael and his wife, they've been wanting to go to Fire Door, which is this restaurant in Sydney. Incredibly hard to get into. They release the bookings on Instagram like once every 6 months, that kind of like influencer thing. And he's like, have you been? And how do you get a booking? And we can never get in. They're always trying to get online. And we just had this conversation. And I'm like, I've been and whatever. And that meant a lot to them. It was just a sort of fleeting conversation. I memory bank that. I also write things like that down in notes for gifts and different things if someone mentions if they're in the Formula One or if they're All Blacks or whatever. I memory banked that until this ridiculous opportunity came. So when you become a CEO, there's things called like VIP concierge, which can get you into restaurants and things like that. Tables are reserved even if the restaurant's really booked out, which I would never use myself. It sounds it's my humble girl from Macquarie Fields. But I'm like, could you get me a reservation for 4 people on Saturday night at Fire Door? And they're like, yeah, which Saturday night do you want? And so months later, like 5 months later, I was able to pick up the phone to Garside and say, hey, guess where you guys are going for dinner?
Wow.
And he's like, you remembered that?
Yeah.
So moments like that. And that's not a big, grand gesture that cost me a lot of money. It was just caring enough to remember something that mattered to them and him, and then making it happen. So I tried to repeat that time and time and time again. And that's how you genuinely build trust. I call it the white with one. Know how someone's cup of tea is made.
Michael Garside, if you're hearing this, mate, you're a top bloke. You deserve everything that you can get. It took me a little while to break Michael as well whilst I was working at Rello. Say, Michael, you're a top bloke, and yeah, I can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to represent you. But Kat, in terms of now you're in Harcourts, what was some of the big changes that you made early on?
Yeah, it was around service. So going in, it was about the way in which we communicated with the business owners, the frequency of the service, rolling up our sleeves and actually being there. I wanted them to know if something went down in their business that we were there. Like they had genuine support. It's not a huge network in New South Wales. So, at scale, that is probably harder to do, but there was capability. So I wanted to build a team around me that were real estate credentialed. And I brought on this amazing state operations manager, and she ended up I saw her on Friday, being poached by Ray White, and she works at Corey. If you're listening, love you too. But she was just incredible. And she was the kind of EA where, and I was saying this to her on Friday, you walk in, she's like, here's your coffee. You've got 3 meetings this week. You need to know this. This person's coming in. His wife's named that. You've got a presentation this week. You haven't started. I've started at 4. You'd be like, okay. She's made me look so good. But she was like high performing and She got real estate. Her partner is a very high-performing multi-million-dollar agent for Ray White and Double Bay. So she knew the grind and knew the hours. So if an agent reached out to her because there was something wrong with their Vault account on a Saturday, she'd just jump in and fix it.
Yeah.
Now, I never expected that. But so having those kind of high-performing people around me, Jess Calvert, again, the PM ops manager, the work we did, it would be like, right, how much more can we push this? Like, what more can we give the network? The answer is yes. Now, what's the question? Let's go. And then let's operate from that place. I also stopped Queensland bashing. And what I mean about that, not the state, because when we play State of Origin, bash away. And I look like I'm in Maroon today. But I meant from a point of view is in a franchise group, you get a national directive and, one size fits all. Sometimes that's hard in different states. But instead of going, oh, we have to do it, Queensland wants us to do it. Like, no, that wasn't the narrative. If we got a directive, we had to figure out a way to sell it in New South Wales that was best for our people and have a united front. So no more divide and conquering either. I just didn't see any benefit of that. And really working really hard to bring the network together as a strong, bonded community. And they got to a point where I was so proud of them. They would peer-to-peer regulate. So nothing worse than, someone posts something on Facebook that they really shouldn't say. And then marketing would send that to me and I'd have to ring as the CEO and say, I would never have to do that in the end because they'd ring each other as business owners and go, hey, mate, like,
Get in.
yeah, pull your head in.
Yeah.
And then, so that meant I didn't have to always dilute my relationship. They would do it and have it in a different way, so I could continue to do the work. Yeah, so that's some of the things. And maybe that doesn't seem like big changes, but it sort of compounds all of that. And I was just really proud, of what a tight-knit community we were.
Was it fragmented before? Did
Yeah,
you
it
bring him
was.
together?
It was frenemies, I think, even in a way. Like there were people that stayed in the network that they were throwing rocks from the sidelines.
Mm.
And it was really important that ceased, that we all came together and, shared knowledge, shared learning, understanding what that looked like. Amplifying property management as well, or elevating property management was really important to me. And just knowing the people, I worked really hard to know the people. I had this phone call once. It was someone who left one of our offices, was working in an LJ Hooker office, and the principal rang me and said, oh, you've got a really great VA at your Toongabbie office. Do you know which organisation they go through? And I'm like, oh, yeah, Diane, the VA. He's like, wait, what? And you know that your Toongabbie office has an EA called Diane. I'm like, yeah. So, yeah, and that, with my team, I would never walk into a real estate office and walk straight to the principal's office and close the door. More importantly, I go and see everyone, hug everyone, kiss everyone. What are you doing? Jump on their computer, sit in there, like, what's going on here? Touch things on their desk and be with all the people. And then I will see the business owner. That's just not my style. And it was really important for our team that they wouldn't do that either. Like we were there. Corporate doesn't sit above them. We were there to serve them.
Mm.
And that was the mantra through my whole leadership.
Yeah. And I think you walking in their shoes sort of amplifies you understanding what they're going through and that level of service and support they need would have definitely had an impact. And I think that's probably where I think a lot of people respect you so highly is because you've done what they've done. You're not just a leader, just leading a team of people, but actually being through what they've been through, all the pain that they've gone through, you've been there. In terms of, you said last year was pretty challenging for you. What was
Yeah.
challenging?
Yeah, I mean, the full stop on my CEO-ship at Harcourts was unexpected for me, and it was a tough time. It was however, I look back at it like this. It was one very, very tough day in the almost 4 years of my leadership there. Apart from that, everything else was beautiful. So one really crappy day. And so I was determined not to let that kind of take away. And I understand in the executive world is rough and tumble. So don't get me wrong. That's part of the course. You have to understand that. And I also understood very clearly that I would never be in that job forever. I truly believe CEOs should hand the baton over because there's a new lens and a fresh opportunity. So I do put that context bubble around that. And I look back on my time there incredibly fondly and really proud and, just like bloody love them. Yeah, but it did hit me like a ton of bricks. So, and again, that's that trauma piece. So when something happens in your life, then a whole heap of other stuff bubbles up. So it was a really particularly tough time for me. And I developed huge social anxiety. And I didn't understand. I had a holiday booked to Queenstown and I nearly didn't go because I was too scared to go to the airport. Now, the week before, I'd caught 3 flights, like business as usual. And then all of a sudden, because it's actually makes no sense and there's no logic behind it, but I was convinced every single person at that airport was going to look at me like I was some loser, right? And judge me. And I just couldn't face it. And my family, and I'm like, I'm just not going on the trip. I did go, and it was really important for me that I did go. But yeah, I just how that hit me really quickly. The rally, like I had the people that reached out to me to check if I was okay, literally hundreds of messages. It was kind of overwhelming to reply back. I had people say, I've never met you, but you've done so much for me, inspired me, or following along, or your honesty and things like that. So I'm now here for you. What can I do? You know, my mates and plenty more of them on the call, many of the Harcourt's business owners, I mean, their show of support to me was mind blowing. I felt like I'd let them down because, you know, it was traumatic for all of us, sort of, and tough, but that's also business, right? So you have to find a way through that. I'm really lucky. Our son Lockie works in mental health. So, you know, I had beautiful support at home. He would come home and go, have you been in that same chair all day? Like, I was really paralyzed. I was paralyzed by the ambiguity because I didn't have a plan. It wasn't my choice, so it wasn't part of that process. And I just was paralyzed. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I felt like such a huge failure. All of that, even though 1,000 people could tell you the opposite. And I remember saying to Lachlan, I just don't understand why all the people are being so lovely and kind to me. How am I ever going to repay that? That's what you don't get. That's why you're getting it back in return. So yeah, and look, everyone, I got lots of bloke friends in real estate. They jump into action. Then was like meetings with everyone: John McGrath, Dean Mackey, like Di Jones. You know, there's like everyone. Hilly is like right, because everyone wanted to fix it. But I just had to sit with it for a little bit and figure out what I needed. And some of the advice I'd given, I'm probably a better friend now, is that if you have someone going through trauma, no matter what that looks like for them, is just sit with them and hold space. You don't have to fix it. Something, you know, they'll work through that. It's more just knowing that you've got someone there to talk or not to talk, or, you know, whatever that might look like. So yeah, that was a really interesting time. And as I said, I honestly was just like, I might be done, because I'm like, what do I do next? I had some offers. They just didn't feel right. I wasn't ready to take them. I was really fortunate that I could have time off. My family was really supported like that. And I guess I had a life that I could walk away for a bit. So that's what I chose to do.
Because we had a chat as well whilst you're going through this, and you were unsure whether you wanted to stay in real estate or not at one stage as well.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I was looking at opportunities in local government. I did speak to Fair Trading because I've done a lot of work with them. They're like, there's opportunity for you in government. Yeah, lots of different things was rattling through my mind, but I actually even couldn't just bring myself to put a resume together. Like I just, you know, it was just so really low functioning, and my brain was really low functioning as a human. And it was so interesting that I could go from being a CEO to here so very quickly.
Yeah. And what were the questions that were going through your head in terms of when, you know, that day did come? Like, did you reflect and go, what have I done wrong? What was the questions going through your head at that stage?
Yeah, all of that. And they weren't just questions going through my head, because it was such a shock for everyone. And, you know, I don't want to dwell on it, honestly. And I have really fond memories of Harcourt. So I want to say that it's a really great brand. And I learned a lot there, and they gave me my first opportunity as a CEO. So this is one moment in time. But they weren't just my questions. Everyone was asking me those questions. And so I was reliving it, phone call after phone call after phone calls, because it was sort of like, why? How do you understand this? And what does that look like? So that was really hard. It was kind of like reliving trauma all the time. And that wasn't their fault, but it did get to a point where I sort of, through therapy and things like that, were able to kind of reshape those questions, because I couldn't, those conversations, because I couldn't just keep having them how they were. And then, you know, look towards the future and what could that be. But it's just doing a hell of a lot of work on yourself and really leaning into all of that, again, all that messy middle, and having just really good people around, taking time, looking after myself, eating healthy. I was really conscious not to go down the drinking even the day it happened. I wanted to feel it. I didn't want to numb it. I thought, if I'm going through this for a reason, and I need to feel it. And I think we talked about, before we came on, the snow globe. So when you're in therapy, they talk about, you know, your life is a little snow globe and it looks perfect and it's like this. Then you shake it. Shake, 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 shake. And it's very like, you're like, it's just everywhere. You're everywhere. You're really unsettled and disjointed. And then the calm comes, which happened, and the snowflakes land, but they land differently. It's different. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but you've got to get used to that new normal and what that looks like and work towards that. So I found that kind of a really good analogy, and something, you know, my snowflakes had certainly landed differently. And yeah, you know, it was what I was going to do next. And lots of opportunities. I have so many mates in this industry. My girlfriend, Caroline Boulderstone, she's a coach. She's got lots of work. She's like, you know, opportunities with her and coaching work and lots of different things. I just was unsure for such a long time as to what I wanted to do. It was really hard because I'd sit in front of someone like John McGrath and you should be selling yourself. And like I was a shell of myself.
Mm.
And I would have to say, look, I just don't
Yeah.
know. I really
Yeah.
don't know what I want to do.
And you went on some girls' retreats, I believe?
Yes, I went to the amazing Ravensdale with, they say you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around. And I hang around a lot of people, but that was, Leanne Pilkington, who I'm sure most everyone would know that. Vanda Gould, #1 buyer's agent in the country. Caroline Boulderstone, one of the top real estate coaches in the country. Catherine Ettenhofer, luxury holiday home specialist. And Jackie Jones, operations and strategic partnership director for Lang & Simmons. All those titles, right? I mean, come on. What a group of
Who's who of
girlfriends.
real estate, powerhouse
What a
women.
group of girlfriends. We had an amazing time. Ravensdale retreat is just spectacular. Lots of French champagne was drunk and lots of conversations. And yeah, it was healing. It really was.
Yeah. And now you've ventured into a new role?
Yes. So the interesting thing about this was it didn't come about until I was, I had healed and was ready. So my friend Caroline, she had been doing some coaching for urban. So urban real estate wasn't really on my radar. There was some team members from Harcourts that had left and gone and worked for an urban office and spoke highly of them. And then I noticed Caroline was coaching them and she works with top high performing agents. So I reached out to her and I'm like, and I started scratching, looking over the fence, I think I call it. And I was like, oh, it's quite an interesting business. And in franchising world, especially Harcourts and #2, and then it's like Harcourts, Ray White, throw McGrath in, whatever. You're really in that bubble and you're not looking outside that. And I was like, oh, this is a really fascinating business. So I plucked up the courage to say to my friend Caroline, I'm like, oh, Chris Lowry, incredible guy who owns this business. I'd love to meet him. He's more in that project space. I've never met him, through networking and things like that. Would you be comfortable just doing an intro? She's like, of course. And she rings him and he goes, we just had a meeting with our executive leadership team and we need a CEO.
No way. So the timing it was there.
Because I asked the question.
The universe.
He's a incredible leader, an incredible entrepreneur who believes in moments and you grab onto it. So he didn't know me from a bar of soap. He met me in Glebe. He lives in Paddington. I had sneakers. I think I wore pants, really casual.
But your casual is like someone's 10, dress scale.
It's really, and he's like, what are you doing at the moment? I said, look, I'm an unemployed CEO. I was really frank. And we had a great conversation. I started hearing about this business. And I was like, wow. And yeah, we met 2 or 3 times. I still never put a resume together. And yeah, they were really great. They negotiated kind of something with me before Christmas so I could have some certainty, get my contract and things like that. But I didn't start till the 27th of Jan, which gave me amazing time to go down to the tennis and down with Hilly and have a lovely big break before I started. Yeah.
Hilly mentioned something about you wore an outfit at the tennis or?
Yeah, my influencer outfit for my hat.
But now you're at Urban. What's happening in Urban? What's the shape of Urban looking like at the moment?
Yeah. So what drew me to Urban was ambition, momentum, and that entrepreneurial mindset. So there's urban land housing and urban real estate. So the two businesses. So urban land housing would be one of the largest project land sales business in Australia. So we might have 5,000 listings, 5,000.
It's a lot of listings.
So yeah, it's actually, it's a huge transaction business. And then off the back of that, we have 17 residential offices. And then we have a pool of, at any time, 300 builder stock that we can sell. So Chris has coined it the paddock to PM theory. So what we do, and we're our strategic plan is very specific. Our battlefield plan, we don't deviate from it. And that's what makes this business very, very attractive to me, is we will sell out a whole land, like a housing estate. So we know every single person in that housing estate because we sold them the land. From the minute they deposit it to waiting for it to be registered, then they might build their dream home or then they build their investment property, whatever it is. And that takes a number of years, long time. So that's very patient. We know all those people. What we do then is once construction starts and land's registered and things, typically the developer it builds a community. And so we get exclusive rights to be the only real estate agency in that shopping centre. So then we put a residential office. That's why we call it paddock. So from very much when it was a paddock to then PM. because we are then their real estate agent of choice to manage that property, do all the resales. We know everybody. We walk in knowing everybody. It's quite extraordinary. So our plan is very, very strategic. So all of our offices operate on that model and operate in shopping centres around current estates that we're selling or projects that we have sold
Are
out.
they individually owned, those offices in those?
Chris owns all of them. One man owns the whole shebang.
Okay.
And he's also a developer. He owns 2 motels and he's also a developer himself. So when they're like, oh yeah, Chris does his own development. Oh yeah, 10 blocks. No, a whole housing estate
Wow.
called Lochinvar Ridge up in the Hunter Valley. So the buckets in this business, the size of this business is mind blowing. It's quite extraordinary. And the fact that it wasn't on my radar or, many of my mates' radar, like watch this space. These are the people that are building these mega businesses that franchising don't have their eye on at the moment. No interest in being a franchise. We aren't a franchise. We operate differently. Like our offices don't have a selling principle. You're not competing with a selling principle. You don't pay franchise fees. And our assistant agents, are on our payroll. We invest in our academy of assistant agents and we build them through to become a lead agent, but our lead agents get the benefit of that. So, in terms of being an agent at Urban, the bottom line is substantially higher than anywhere else. Our model is just different. And that is because one person owns the whole thing. We have universal implementation systems and things like that. I'm not running a network of 400 individually owned offices. It's one cohesive
And
network.
how do you go about retention with quality sales agents who might have the aspiration to one day open their own? How do you retain those good?
Yeah. And look, people may always do that. Our job is to build, a model within our business where they can have all the benefits of that without actually the cost of being a business owner. Like when
Sure.
you lay out what it looks like to be a business owner in real estate, I mean, I can give them a compelling argument of why they probably stay here,
Yes.
but some people always want to do that. And that's fine. When you jump, you fly. You have to give people their wings. But for the most part, our top performing agents understand wholeheartedly, and they could be on a contractor model or whatever within our business for themselves, because that might make more sense with tax minimization or different things like that once you earn a certain amount. But they can just have all the benefits of a machine. Like we're a lead generating machine. We're marketing, what we invest in our corporate marketing. Every one of our locations has a monthly marketing budget where they have autonomy to do their own BDA marketing. They've got a pretty good wicket. So why would you leave?
And what have you learnt from the transition from Harcourts as a CEO to now CEO for this business? Has there been a aha moment for you in terms of what you've learnt?
Yeah, first part's been a bit humbling because when you walk into a new business as a CEO, it's a lot more about listening than leading. Like you have to step back and it's not about your impact for the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So, and you're very conscious that people are assessing you. So they're probably thinking, isn't she doing more or whatever? But for me, I've got to wrap my head around the commercial levers, the energy, the people, potential gaps. I made it really clear I had no interest in making wholesale changes. So it's a lot of that observation and kind of, can you help me understand? Or, oh, what do we, all of that kind of stuff. And it is humble because for your ego, it's not a performance thing. You're not really performing. And so that can be hard when you're a top performer. The other thing is I'm really fortunate to have an incredible executive team around me. Like they are amazing. So it makes it very easy for me to have high performance and high trust. and I probably shouldn't say this in public, but I've used this Simpsons reference a little bit. So for anyone I have millennial children, but it is. And there was this one episode where Homer, he was like obviously terrible employee, but he was the long-standing employee at the nuclear power plant. And then there was this brand new, like Google nuclear power plant. So they poached him and headhunted and parachuted him in. And he's completely overwhelmed because the business is amazing and everyone's there and they're working hard. And he's like, are you guys working hard? And they're like, yep. And he's like, could you work harder? And they're like, yep. He's like, and not the working hard, but I just think I've got these amazing people around me, and it's sort of like they might come to me for something. I'm like, I don't need to check that. I know that that's great. Like really doing a great job. But, you do have to continue to create that environment where people can really do the best work of their lives, but still be a wonderful human. So that's the touch that I'm hoping to bring to Urban, getting to know people. I've made myself available any of our agents and anyone, to have regular catch ups with me, check ins, have my ear, making sure I'm picking up on the little things, having those conversations, supporting people. We've got lots of things going on in our business at the moment, making sure people know what great looks like. Like, it's our job as leaders to build beautiful scaffolding of support. At Urban, we talk about vision of success. Every single team member has to have a clear vision of success, and what is your number one activity you should be doing to be able to succeed. And if they can't articulate that, then we haven't done our job as leaders, and we have to keep going back to that, going back to that, going back to that. And we believe that's a really simple but powerful way to kind of propel the business forward.
Kat, for someone who wants to step out of being a sales agent, wanted to take a corporate or a leadership role, what's some advice you'd give? Quick word from our sponsors, Rello. Most agencies don't have a sales problem. They have an operational one. There's too many platforms, too many handovers, and too many gaps where things can go wrong, especially with compliance tightening. This is where Rello fixes that. It brings everything into one place. That's payments, funding, ID checks and title searches, and even AML, all inside a single automated workflow. No duplications, no chasing, no messy tech stack. Your team gets complete visibility and control, and your clients get a seamless professional experience from start to finish. If your back end feels clunky, that's usually where the real problem is, and Rello is built to solve it. To find out more, please visit rello.com.au. That's rello.com.au. Now let's get back into the episode.
You have to understand that real estate is a business where you work with people for people. If you step out of those roles, that once you transition into corporate, you can have impact at scale. So that's amazing, but it's not about you. Killy always says, he talks about his beautiful son, Sam, and he says, Sam's best is my best. Now, as a leader or have been in corporate for a long time, the network's best is my best, or conversely. So you have to realize it's not about you, it's about them. Enormously satisfying and fulfilling if you can successfully make that transition. You have to be able to adopt your coaching style, your leadership capabilities, and how you teach people for those. You got to meet people where they're at. You can't kind of come in if you're a high performing sales agent and I went bang, 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 perform at the same level. Yeah, I would say genuinely in your heart, you're like, I'm ready. Now it's about being able to pay that forward. Be prepared to meet people where they're at. Start with there, because if you don't, I think you'll struggle.
Kat, thank you very much. I really appreciate you joining me on this podcast. It's a new podcast, and to have Katrina on my podcast, I'm like over the moon, like I'm starstruck, to be honest with you. But you are an amazing human being, and I think today what I wanted to do was show you that you have had an impact on many people, and there was a bit of love going back towards you as opposed to you giving love to them. But I can't thank you enough for joining me today.
I'm
Thank
pretty
you.
stoked with the gang, so thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thanks so much.